Devin Vassell. One of our leading scorers on the team. He's been our leading scorer in our past 5 games, as you can see here. And is up, just not a giant increase from last year when you look at him statistically, Ethan. But the other thing that is key is, well, his overall field goal percentage has gone up. You could say the 2% decrease for 3-point shooting, but the key here is that now he's having to play next to Victor Wembanyama, as well as having to play with Jeremy Sohan, and all of these guys really in this type of role, if that makes sense. Because last year, that would have been his first time kind of being like one of the main shot takers on the team. And obviously, he only played 38 games because of the knee injury last season and the procedure that he had done on it. But yeah, sorry, I thought I had the stats up here already. Realized that when I got back. But I'll just dish it to you, Ethan, to start on Devin's season so far.
I really think it's been overwhelmingly positive. Last year, you mentioned he kind of had a weird season. He only played, 40 something odd games in and out of the lineup, in and out of the starting rotation with a mismatch of different starters next to him. So this year, he's actually played 45 games this far into the year, um, getting used to playing with Victor, getting used to playing with Jeremy, like you said. But stats down a little bit, but strengths continue to be strengths for Devin. He's a walking bucket. He's a 3-point sniper. On occasion, can get hot and cold. I think early in the season he was a little cold, but recently he's been really cooking from beyond the arc. So he's kind of finding his rhythm and finding his confidence. Something that he continually talks about in post-game conferences is just finding his confidence and being confident in himself to take big shots. I know people were upset about his last second shot and maybe he could have passed it to Wemby, but that's a tough pass, and you kind of want your shooting guard to be in those situations. The guy taking some shots like that, it's up for debate. It's up for debate. I'm fine with him taking the shot. His confidence is up. I think his strength finishing at the rim has improved. I think he's trying to actively get himself to the line, and facilitating wise, it was a struggle early, but he's finally finding a chemistry with Victor Wembanyama, making some great passes to him. Their pick and roll game has been very deadly, whether it be him as the ball handler or him as the pick setter. They've kind of developed a two-man game the past couple of weeks that's been very exciting to watch. And then defensively, he's arguably one of our best perimeter defenders, and it may be Jeremy, but it's him, Jeremy, and Vic as our 3 best perimeter defenders. So that's obviously a strength for his, something that he came into the draft as a strength. Now, things he can improve on, I would say just consistency, continuing to improve as a playmaker and as ball handler. Um, and just continuing to be aggressive, finishing strong at the rim. He still, on occasion, will miss some easy bunnies. So if he can continue to get in the gym, get stronger, and develop his chemistry with everybody, who knows what the limit is for Devin Vassell.
Yeah, and when I was touching on the stats, you could say being down a little bit, even though they're basically practically identical. The
Yeah.
whole reason that I brought that up was, I may have not articulated it the best, was not only are you adding Victor, but as you can see, he's already played, if I can do some quick maths, he's already played 7 more games than he did last season. So when you factor in, and a lot of times when he came in and played last year, Keldon was out or Jeremy was out. So this is really the first time playing with everybody. So I think when you factor in, you add Victor, that's going to take shots away from him, obviously. When last year, really, he was probably the number 1 shot taker on the team when he played. And then on top of that, he's also really playing, in this type of role with guys like Keldon, Jeremy, and Trey. For the first time really throughout this season. But when it comes to my takes on Devin, Ethan, obviously, and I'll probably say this for every single time we do this, just because we do have similar thoughts. I echo a lot of the stuff that you said. Man, really to me, it just comes down to consistency for Devin right now. I mean, I'm not really, I feel like Devin's play style is very applicable, and can fit into a lot of different styles, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, Ethan, but down the line, if we do have to make personnel changes, which I think is going to be inevitable, I don't think every single rookie that we draft is going to be, on the team, when we're making a playoff race, You know what I mean? Obviously, that's far in advance. So there's, I'm talking like 3-4 years out right now. Um, I'm losing my train of thought, Ethan. Remind me where I was at.
Saying some guys are inevitably gonna be gone, but Devin's play style is so versatile.
Yes. Thank you. I was just saying, moving forward, he's going to be somebody that I think is going to be able to fit into whatever we decide to do in how we build around Wemby. So you could say the 3 point percentage is down a little bit, but then you could also say that the overall field goal percentage is also up by the same amount. So that really offsets itself. I think we've been able to see, he's become. Not only did we see it wasn't even really flashes of it because we still got to see it for 38 games. We, through the 45 games that we've seen so far, Ethan, it's confirmed that he is somebody who can go get a bucket off the dribble. He's somebody, arguably right now, I know Wemby can do incredible things, but just as of right now, when it comes to polishedness, Ethan, I think he's probably our best isolation scorer.
Yes.
And on top of that, he's somebody who can play on or off the ball, and he's improving as a defender.
Yeah.
Um, but really, what it comes down to for me, Ethan, as you can see, up to a steal a game. He's had a steal a game technically the past couple years, but um, really, it just comes down to consistency for me with him moving forward offensively and defensively. Whenever it comes to him improving,
I think my comparison for him when we had drafted him, Jude, was Chris Middleton. Now that we have Victor Wembanyama, who is often compared to Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think that comp for him and his play style next to Wemby, that's really becoming. I'm kind of a prophet. That's becoming very, very true right before our very eyes. So,
That's a really good comparison, Ethan. There, I think you deserve a head pat, and also the 2-man game that you mentioned. You're seeing that develop so much with him and Wemby, and like you mentioned, him as a screener. That was something that I really kind of brought up. I've seen him even do that with other guys.
yeah,
So just the fact that he's finding other ways to impact the game, even if it's just little things here or there. Those are things that you got to be happy about. Now, the other thing I just want to, as we're right here, Ethan, because we're talking very good about Trey and now we're talking good about Devin. We do acknowledge we're 10-40.
yeah,
Um, but the other thing that we acknowledge with that is that, the league, for one. I mean, I feel like the bottom of the league, there's like the biggest gap between the bottom of teams and then, the maybe 15, 16 win teams. I guess well that's like Portland is who I'm thinking of. You get what I'm saying. There
yeah,
is this year, I don't know how to necessarily put it into words, but what I'm trying to say is the gap between the bottom of the league and then the play-in teams, it feels like is the biggest that we've seen since the play-in has been around.
for sure. I mean, the league is extremely competitive right now. Probably the top 12 seeds, both conferences have a right to be in the play-in tournament, and
Yeah.
that's. I mean, honestly, playoffs. Like, there's some play-in teams that are like, I thought that they would be guaranteed playoff spots, but it's just, it's cutthroat out there, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where the Kings are at right now, but they're a team that was like top 3 in the league last year, and they're not even having necessarily a bad season. It's just like you've seen the Thunder take jumps, you've seen you've seen the Rockets take jumps.
The King,
Yeah, so they're at 5 right now. I remember earlier they were at 7, so that's good for them, but still, like, that's an example of a team just falling off a little bit, and they didn't even really lose anything, if I'm remembering uh,
yeah,
everything correctly. But the whole reason I bring that up is we're just looking at this from a development perspective. We understand that the Spurs are on the struggle bus when it comes to the win-loss record in the NBA. So if we're sitting here talking about, oh, these are some good things that we've seen from these guys, we really feel like it's developments on the right track. We're not saying that necessarily translates to winning in the current moment. We're looking at this from a very long-term perspective. Devin Vassell just signed a 5-year extension. What are the things we're seeing right now, and how are they translatable, and how can they be developed over the next 5 years? And so he can become, an all-star level player, really. I mean, because that's the type of contract that we gave him. He's already at 18 points. He's at least going to be a 20 point per game scorer, or
mhm,
close to it, I feel like, for the rest of his career.
for sure. And for the delusional fans out there that want some hate in our show, the biggest negative that we probably won't address because this is a player by player breakdown is that the Spurs are a young team with zero chemistry offensively or defensively, and that's why we've only won 10 games. But why is that, Jude? We're the youngest team in the league. Even still, and if you want to say OKC is also young, just look at their history the past couple
Look
years,
at the
how
context.
they have a MVP candidate in Shea Gilgeous who's been there for several years. Like, do some homework before you throw that stat out there. We're really just getting into this rebuild thing.
Yeah, last year the Thunder were in the play-in, and the past 2 seasons prior, they had less than 30 wins and at least 50 losses. We're kind of in year 1 of that right now. I know last year we were 22 and 60, but that was in order to get the centerpiece that is Victor. And obviously, you can go back to the beginning of the season, and myself and you thought we were going to be a lot better than we were right now. But we've also been humbled by a lot of the stuff that we mentioned earlier with the way that the league is this year, but also just some reminders of what it's like when you bring in a generational talent, the NBA rebuilding process. And then two, I mean, this goes into Victor, which we'll get into later, but Pop mentioned this recently. Like Victor's also, not only are we adjusting to playing with Victor, but then Victor's adjusting to playing the schedule. And then on top of that, like we already mentioned earlier with Devin, he only played 38 games with the guys last year. And then even when Keldon played, there were some Jeremy injuries. We don't need to rehash all of that. But we have been reminded that really this year is year 1 with these guys for a multitude of reasons.
Well said, Mr. Jude. Well said.
Just to get to some comments here before we end, blah, blah, blah says, I do want to see Devin improve on defense more. That's an area where I feel like he can take a leap as he has the physical skills. I agree there for sure. And then just to address this too, blah, blah, blah says, I'm not saying Devin shouldn't have passed, but if you know Devin, he wants that shot too. And he played a great game. He could have hit that shot.
Sure.
Alejandro Morales says, last shot was a tough call. It needed to be a touch pass. The second the defender turned around, the pass would have been picked or deflected, and he believes that the shot was the best outcome. There was a lot of noise out there, man, on Twitter from people who are very well respected in the Spurs community, and it really kind of surprised me, man.
That's a tough pass. Even if he
Bro,
makes that pass, that is a very difficult entry pass. Moving left, you got 2 defenders on your face and a help defender coming from the corner. Maybe Wemby can make a miraculous lob catch, but that's a really tough pass with your momentum going the opposite direction. Right? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Devin had 28.
Yeah, that's also true. And it's a
He's our
good.
best. He's our best 3-point shooter right now, too. Like, I'm not saying he's the best player on the team, but like as of right now, he's the best 3-point shooter on the team, and he had the hot hand in the game. And it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's a great thing that we competed with maybe not a great. You don't want to great for a loss. But in the context of this season, competing with the Pelicans is pretty good, man. Now that if you want to criticize the Cleveland performance on Saturday, I'm all ears. I get that. That was ugly. But the New Orleans game, like, yes, that's a tough shot. You want to win the game. And when you have a 7'4" generational star, like, I understand where people are coming from, but I don't think that Devin is a selfish Wemby hater because
No.
he took that shot. I think he wears 24 and Kobe is his idol for a reason. And he basically had 30 and he had a 3 to win the game. So he took it. And then he said he would take it every time because he's that type of player. Like, I don't know why people are mad about that. But I guess if every player at every moment doesn't say that Wemby is the best and they need to pass to him at every moment, Ethan, it's a problem with some people.
It's ridiculous, dude. I mean, how many great generational centers get last shots? Like, that's also just like a point. Like, if I'm fine with Wemby shooting the last shot, but give him the rock. Like, don't. Never mind. Never mind.
A lot of the stuff that y'all already said in the comments, we agree with as well. And just want to get to some other comments here. Nick was in here. He's a SSPN OG. He says, been keeping up with y'all on Spotify when I can't catch the lives. We truly appreciate that, Nick. And then DA Gaming says we could easily be 20 plus win right now if we knew how to win close games. Very young players. I mean, think of all the single digit games that we've lost. I mean, the ones that come to my mind just right off rip. I mean, really, you could even include the Orlando game a little bit if you wanted to recently, with the way that we kind of if you want to say, fumbled the end of that comeback there. But the Bucks, the previous Cavs game, and then obviously the Pelicans games are just recent ones that come to mind. And I'm forgetting others that have also happened this season. We have lost a lot of late games in crunch time, and
Wizards.
that's because it's the first time this group is going through that experience, Ethan.
Yep.
What a crazy thought.
Some people just don't have very many thoughts, Jude.
We will try not to subtweet on this pod. I don't know. You get what I'm saying. Subtweet anymore too much. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, but there are just some, Ethan, that I see that frustrate me. But it's all good. It's a part of the gig. Any final thoughts on Devin before we move on?
Robin. He's the Robin.
Yes. And also, I'm so glad we signed him to that extension. He's 23 years old right now, Ethan. I think he'll be 24 when that contract kicks in. We're going to have him from when he's 24 to 29. Think about that.
Perfect.
Great locked up contract there.